When American chess master Donald Byrne moved his knight to a square f3 in the game he played in 1956 at Marshall Chess Club in New York, he had no idea that he was starting the game that will be known as the game of the century. Byrne's opponent was none other than Bobby Fischer, a future world champion. The game is a stunning masterpiece full of combinations and sacrifices. Possibly the most amazing fact is that Fischer was 13 years old at the time, and he responded with the move knight f6, c4, English opening, g6, opening the door for a black square bishop, knight c3, bishop g7, d4, and that is a transposition to a King's Indian defense if black played d6. But instead, it was castle, bishop f4, and d5. And that's already a Grunfeld defense, Hungarian attack. Black is attacking the white center and also taking control of the square, important square e4. Queen b3, developing the queen, and now the bishop on c8 cannot be developed so easily because if it goes away on, let's say, square f5, the pawn on b7 is hanging. Exchange of the pawns on c4, c6. Standard move in these positions to control the squares b5 and d5, not allowing the white pieces to get there easily. e4, controlling the center for white. Knight d7, rook d1, and knight b6. Developing the knight through the square of b6 and attacking the white queen. Queen goes to c5, and black moves their bishop to g4, pinning the knight to the rook. Here's the first mistake of the game. White plays bishop g5. It's not so easy to understand why this is a mistake until you see the next brilliant move by a 13-year-old genius. Knight a4. An absolute brilliant tactical move. And the reason this move is so great is because if you take the knight on a4, there is a hit on e4 by the knight. Knight takes e4, and you see this is the reason bishop g5 wasn't a good move, because now the knight from e4 is attacking the queen on c5 and the bishop on g5. So the queen has to go away. Let's say it goes to c2, and black wins a piece by taking the knight on f3 and then taking the bishop on g5, as the only piece that protected the bishop was the knight on f3. Therefore, taking the knight on a4 is not the best move for white, and instead they move the queen away from danger to a square a3. Here Bobby Fischer takes the knight on c3, exchange of the knights, and he plays knight takes e4, because knight was protecting the pawn on e4. Fischer eliminated that knight and took the pawn on e4, and again the threat is to take the knight on f3 and then to take the bishop on g5 and win a piece. Therefore white plays bishop takes e7 with the double attack on the queen and on the rook. And it seems like very dangerous for black because they have two heavy pieces under attack, but it's not a problem. They play queen b6. Now if white takes the rook on f8, the continuation of the game could have been bishop takes f8, attacking the queen, and after the queen goes away, knight takes c3. That would have been another brilliant move in this position, and you cannot take the knight on c3 because there is bishop f4, pinning the queen to the king and winning the queen. So therefore, white didn't take the rook on f8 and instead developed the white square bishop on the square c4. And still knight c3. Still knight c3, knight takes c3, another brilliance. And let's take a look what will happen if white took the bait and took the knight on c3. So let's say queen takes c3. The possible continuation would be rook to e8, pinning the bishop to the king. It's impossible to protect that bishop. So the next possible move would have been a castle. And after rook takes e7, black's position is totally winning because they have an extra pawn and two absolutely monstrous bishops in an open position. Always a two bishop advantage is critical when the position is open like it is right now. Plus the pawn on d4 and the pawn on a2 are two weak isolated pawns, so this position is totally winning. After knight takes e3, c3, white attacked the black queen on b6, and Bobby Fischer checked an opponent with the rook from e8, rook e8 check. The king went to f1, but the queen is still under attack. And here, so where you put the queen? Would you put on c7? Would you put on d8? None of that happened. Bishop e6. Absolutely amazing. Black do not even care that their queen is under attack. So they sacrifice a queen. And what's even greater about this sacrifice, that black do not win the game like in 2 or 3 moves after they sacrifice the queen. This is a long-term sacrifice of the queen. So bishop took the queen on b6. Bishop c4 check, king g1. So in this particular position, black has only one piece for the queen. So material advantage is really in favor of white. But knight e2 check, king f1, knight takes d4 with a discovered check from the bishop, kings go back, another check from e2, kings go to f1, knight c3, another discovered check from the bishop, king goes to g1, and in this position, black finally take the bishop on b6. White still has material advantage because they have an extra queen for two pieces, for two bishops. So the queen is considered 9 points, and two bishops 6, plus black has two extra pawns. So if we use the math, white is 1 point up. So the queen is under attack. It has to go. The queen goes to b4, attacking the bishop on c4. And here Bobby Fischer goes rook a4. Not only attacking the queen, but also by an x-ray protecting the bishop on c4. Queen takes b6. Knight takes d1. So now black already has a material advantage as well as positional advantage, and the game is totally over, but more brilliant moves to come. h3 to create a loft for the king to escape. Rook took the pawn on a2, king went away to h2, knight f2 attacking the rook on h1, the rook goes away to e1, exchange of the rooks with the intermediate check on d8. The only move to protect the king is bishop f8, white take the rook, bishop goes to d5, knight f3, knight e4, queen b8, and b5. In this position, Byrne didn't have any ideas really, and the position is totally lost, so he played the move h4. Black blocked any counterplay by white by moving their pawn to h5. Knight went to an active square on e5. King went to g7, and the idea of this move is to free up the bishop that was pinned to the king. King goes to g1, and here goes a checkmating attack with forcing moves, starting with bishop c5 check. Kings go to f1. Another check from the knight. Kings go to e1. Bishop b4. Check. King goes all the way from the one side of the board to the other. Another check with the bishop. Bishop b3. King goes to c1. Those are the only moves. Knight e2. Again, the only move is king b1. Another check by the knight on c3. Kings go to c1. And the final move of the game, rook c2, checkmate. Brilliant game by Bobby Fischer, 13-year-old genius, who later on became not only the world champion, but one of the best players ever to play this game. Thank you for watching.